They left the church service to go to a party that night, and then this happened. "Look who's arriving," one of the students murmured, as the headlights of the cars discreetly lit up the side entrance of the school. The three girls stepped out, each from a different car, elegantly dressed, hair perfectly styled, designer purses in hand, and heels that had nothing to do with the required school uniform. Outside the school's low fence, the men who had brought them got out of the cars and opened the doors for them, each girl receiving a hug and a kiss on the forehead before heading to the wall. Tasha was the first to climb over nimbly, lifting the hem of her dress so it wouldn't tear as she passed over the fence. Imelda followed, pushed up gently by her companion's hands. Blessing, the last one, shared a few laughs and words before calmly climbing over, as if she were stepping off a curb. On the other side of the wall, the three ran silently through the back area toward the girls' dorm, as if it were already part of their routine. Meanwhile, Adaora was watching everything from the third-floor window of Block C, the simplest building in the girls' wing. She held the curtain with her fingertips, eyes locked on the scene below. Kioma, lying on the bed beside her, noticed the silence. "They came back again?" she asked without lifting her head. "They did. Each one in a different car, as always," Adaora replied, her tone a mix of envy and concern. The following Saturday began with the usual buzz. It was hair day at the school salon, a spacious room with large mirrors, wash basins, and industrial dryers. But everyone knew, no one dared to go in until Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing were done. The three always occupied the central chairs, attended by the school's best hairstylists. They paid extra, bribing the staff to work exclusively on them, while the other students waited outside, sweating in the hot sun and waiting patiently. Adaora and Kioma, as usual, had no place there. They returned to the dorm early, and sitting on the floor, started braiding each other's hair using cheap gel and a broken mirror propped against the wall. They did this every month because the scholarship money didn't cover luxuries like the salon. What they received from their parents barely covered the basics. "Hold still, Ada, or the braid will be crooked," Kioma said, carefully pulling her friend's hair. "I am still. It's just the heat, it's making me nervous." When they finished, they packed up their supplies and walked down the hallway toward the courtyard. But as they passed the lobby of the main building, they heard the laughter. "Look, the maids just walked out of their shack," said Imelda mockingly, sitting in a red armchair beside her friends. "Those braids look like they were done with laundry soap," added Blessing, sparking laughter from a group of nearby girls. "Nice village braids," Tasha sneered, rolling her eyes and crossing her legs slowly, showing off a pair of imported sneakers. The three were surrounded by bags of gourmet popcorn, smoothie cups, and colorful juices. The decor around them was a different world entirely. Artificial flowers on the windowsills, embroidered curtains, and rugs covering the cold dorm floors. This was their domain. Adaora and Kioma quickened their pace, trying to ignore the comments. But suddenly, Kioma tripped on a loose edge of a rug and fell to her knees, knocking over one of the smoothie cups as she tried to steady herself. The purple liquid spilled onto Imelda's feet. The room went silent, followed by an explosion of laughter from the surrounding girls. "Look what you've done, you clumsy thing," Blessing shouted. "I'm sorry. It was an accident," Kioma murmured, standing up quickly, trembling. "An accident, she says," Imelda scoffed. "Do you have any idea how much that smoothie cost? That was 10,000 naira. Adaora's eyes widened. I don't have that kind of money," she replied, barely audible. "Then watch where you're going, girl." Tasha snapped coldly. "Next time the bill comes with interest." The tension in the room was suffocating. Kioma, eyes welling with tears, stayed silent. Adaora just took her by the arm, and they walked away without another word. The next day, during Nigerian history class, Adaora was deeply focused on her textbook. It was her favorite subject. She was highlighting a passage on British colonization when a shadow fell over her desk. It was Imelda. "Studying hard, huh?" she said, leaning over the desk. "Of course, that's what we're here for, right?" Adaora replied cautiously. "Well, the girls and I are going out Saturday. Party in Enugu. There's going to be a DJ, a pool, tons of good food. You should come with us." Adaora frowned. "A party? Outside the school?" "Do you live on another planet?" Imelda laughed. Here, if your parents are important, you make your own rules. The principal just pretends not to see." "I don't know." Adaora hesitated. "Oh, Adaora, you always look at us with admiration, don't you? Now it's your turn to experience this world." Imelda winked. "Maybe you'll fit in with us. I see potential in you. Maybe out of pity." Adaora didn't answer right away. Her heart was racing. She remembered her mother's words, "Avoid questionable company. You have a rare chance. Focus on your studies." But at that moment, the desire to belong spoke louder. "Okay, I'll go." Imelda smiled, satisfied, and gave her a light pat on the shoulder before walking off like she was on a runway. That same night, Adaora received an envelope with a piece of grilled fish and a smoothie bottle, everything wrapped in aluminum foil with the scent of an upscale restaurant. She looked at the gift, then at Kioma, who was lying down with a math book on her lap. "This is for me," Adaora said, almost in shock. Kioma looked up and paused. "From those girls?" "Yeah." Adaora opened the wrapping with trembling hands and took the first bite. She closed her eyes. "Now I get it. This is what they eat all the time." And there, in the dark of their modest dorm room, with the taste of the fish still in her mouth, Adaora felt for the first time the flavor of transgression disguised as prestige. Night fell heavily over the old buildings of Mount Zion Academy. In the girls' dormitory, Adaora sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the recently received iPhone as if it were a sacred relic. The device glowed in her thin, trembling hand. She had never held anything so modern, so expensive. The camera reflected her face, still torn between guilt and excitement. "So it's true. You're one of them now," Kioma said, standing at the doorway in her wrinkled uniform, her expression a mix of disappointment and hurt. "Kioma, it's not like that," Adaora tried to explain, unable to meet her friend's eyes. "It's not what it looks like. You go to the salon with them now, eat grilled fish while I eat ramen, and you're taking gifts from old men." Adaora stayed silent. Kioma crossed her arms and leaned against the wall. "We had a deal, Ada. You and me against the world. We were going to make it out with our heads held high. And now you come at me with this talk about new level? No one understands what I feel here. I'm tired of being the school's joke," Adaora said, standing up abruptly. "Every time we walk by, someone laughs. Every time we speak, they mock us. I just want to feel like I belong. And you think you'll get that by going to these shady parties with men old enough to be your father? They never get in trouble," Adaora shot back, frustrated. "The three of them leave school every Saturday, never punished, never pregnant. They have power, Kioma. They have power. And me. I'm done being the poor scholarship girl." Kioma was quiet for a moment, then spoke, her voice trembling. "Just remember, not everything that shines is gold. You're about to lose the only thing you've got left that matters, your dignity." She walked out, closing the door firmly behind her. Adaora sat back down, her heart pounding. From that moment on, she knew. She was alone in her decision. Saturday night came quickly. The three girls, Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing, looked like magazine models, flawlessly dressed, made up, perfumed, smiles on their faces. Adaora showed up in the back courtyard shortly after, wearing a tight blouse borrowed from Imelda, uncomfortable high heels, and freshly straightened hair from the salon. "Now we're talking," said Blessing, eyeing Adaora from head to toe. "You're ready." They walked to the school's side wall, where a lower section made it easier to climb. One of the guards was pretending to smoke on the other side, purposely distracted. "He works for us, go ahead," Tasha said with a sly smile. One by one they climbed over the wall, the sounds of crickets and distant horns mixed with Adaora's racing heartbeat. When her feet hit the ground on the other side, a chill ran down her spine, quickly drowned out by the screeching of tires. A sleek car with metallic paint pulled up at the curb. The driver got out quickly. He was tall, dark-skinned, broad-shouldered, and wore a confident smile. "My doll," he said, hugging Imelda and kissing her forehead. Then he turned to Adaora with hungry eyes. "And who's this princess?" "This is Adaora, fresh recruit," Blessing replied as she got into the car. "Hop in, Angel, tonight's your night," the man said, holding the door open for her. Adaora climbed into the back seat with the other two girls. On the way to the mansion in Enugu, the girls chatted excitedly about past parties, rich men, and dream vacations. When they arrived, Adaora could hardly believe what she was seeing. A wrought-iron gate opened by remote control, revealing a massive house with a lit-up facade, glowing pool, and a garden that looked straight out of a movie. Soft music played inside, mingling with the gentle pulsing of LED lights. "Welcome to the funhouse," Imelda announced, kicking off her shoes and running toward one of the rooms. Blessing and Tasha disappeared with their respective boyfriends down the wide, luxurious hallways. Adaora stood frozen in the living room, unsure what to do. The couch was leather, the paintings on the walls looked expensive, and trays of food sat on a long silver table. Then he appeared, Mr. Kenneth. "Hey, beautiful," he said with a charming smile. "I've been waiting for you. Come sit with me." Adaora walked cautiously to the couch. He sat down beside her, very close. "You're even more stunning in person. Your skin glows. Your smile is shy but sweet. I like that." "Thank you, sir," she said nervously. "Kenneth, just Kenneth. And don't worry, I'm not like the others. I take care of what's mine, you understand?" She nodded, unsure what to say. Before the silence got awkward, Imelda appeared holding a glass of whiskey. "Look who's here." "Ada, you haven't even had your drink. That's not going to work. You need to learn how to be a real woman." I'd rather have juice," she replied. They all laughed, not mockingly, more like a rite of passage. Later, as they got ready to leave, the men began handing out gifts. Bags of clothes, envelopes of money, expensive perfumes. Mr. Kenneth gave Adaora a purse with a brand new iPhone inside and a wad of cash folded in a handkerchief. "Anything you need, call me. You're special," he whispered in her ear. Back at school in the early hours of the morning, the girls silently climbed over the wall and ran to their dorms. Adaora was the last to slip inside. She leaned against the door and let out a long sigh. She held the new phone in her hands, cash in her pocket, and a storm of emotions in her chest. Part of her felt triumphant. The other part, well, that part she tried to ignore. On the bed, Kioma pretended to be asleep, but the tears soaking her pillow revealed she had heard everything. Adaora's phone buzzed on the table for the 5th time that morning. She was still in bed, but already wide awake. It was the same number again, Mr. Kenneth. Since that night in Enugu, he had called every single day. Always the same velvety voice, the same over-the-top compliments, the same sweet nicknames that felt so different from the blunt, no-nonsense tone her teachers used. "Hello," she answered, rubbing her eyes and trying to sound cheerful. "My angel, just waking up. I missed your voice." "I'm fine, just a little tired. It's been a rough week." "You deserve to rest, my beautiful one. Have you thought about us going out, just the two of us, without your noisy friends?" Adaora smiled, but deep down a sense of unease crept in. Despite all the pampering, sweet words, and expensive gifts, there was something about that man that made her feel like she was walking a tightrope. Still, she ignored the feeling. Instead, she looked at the iPhone on the table and compared it to her old phone, cracked, dim, barely usable. "Maybe on Saturday and after finals," she replied, uncertain. "Perfect. Get ready. It's going to be a special night," he said before hanging up. That same day, after class, Adaora met up with Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing in the cafeteria. They were all excited, planning the weekend's new outing. "Same spot, but this time, more rich guys are showing up," Imelda said. "And listen, Adaora, Kenneth messaged me. He said he's falling for you. Girl, you really did some damage." "I don't even know what I'm doing, honestly," she replied, laughing awkwardly. "Learn from us," Blessing said, crossing her legs and snapping her fingers. "Step 1. Walk like you own the world." Tasha stood up and strutted through the cafeteria with slow, graceful steps, hips swaying with precision. Posture, shoulders back, no looking down, and smile with your lips, not your eyes. Mystery is everything. Adaora tried to mimic her, while the three corrected her walk, her voice tone, even the way she moved her hands. Your whole body needs to say, "I'm expensive." If you look unsure, guys will hand you a drink and a hug. But if you act like you know what you're doing, they open the vault, Imelda explained. That night, Adaora practiced in front of the dorm mirror. Kioma watched silently from the top bunk. When Adaora noticed her gaze, she tried to brush it off. "I'm just trying to improve the way I walk." "You don't have to explain anymore, Ada," Kioma said quietly. "You've already made your choice." "Kioma, it's no use. You're in a different world now. Good luck." On Saturday night, everything happened with the same precision as before. The back wall, the guard pretending not to see, luxury cars pulling up silently. Adaora didn't hesitate anymore. She climbed with confidence, wearing a short skirt and a red lace blouse borrowed from Imelda. With dark lipstick and fake lashes, she was almost unrecognizable. Kenneth arrived in an even fancier car, a black SUV with leather seats. When he saw Adaora, he stepped out and opened his arms with a smile that said he already knew what he wanted. "Look at my star shining," he said, kissing her hand. "Good evening, Kenneth. You look stunning, my dear. Get ready for an unforgettable night." On the way there, the other couples chatted excitedly in the back seat. Adaora, sitting in the front, kept her composure. She watched the city through the window as the buildings gave way to large, luxurious homes. When they arrived, they were greeted by electronic music, flashing blue LED lights, and a buffet of dishes she had never seen before. Giant shrimp, lamb skewers, almond rice, and gleaming crystal glasses. Tasha and Blessing ran into the arms of their partners. Imelda was already laughing with a new suitor. Adaora stood in the living room, holding a glass of juice, watching the others dance and kiss like it was nothing. She thought of her mother's words. "Stay away from men until you become someone. A man's eyes are full of empty promises." But standing there, watching her friends treated like queens, she tried to believe that maybe it could be different. "Shall we go to the balcony?" Kenneth asked, stepping up beside her. She nodded. Outside, the balcony overlooked the pool, where other girls laughed loudly as they dove in. The smell of chlorine mixed with perfume and hookah smoke filled the air. "You're different, Adaora. Not like the others. There's something pure about you," Kenneth said, running his fingers through her hair. She pulled back slightly, pretending to adjust her blouse strap. "I'm still getting used to all this." "You don't need to get used to anything. Let me take care of you. You don't have to go back to that simple life. I'll take you to Abuja, to London if you want. Just tell me you trust me." Adaora gave a shy smile, unable to answer. Deep inside, something still bothered her. It was the same feeling she had the first time she saw those girls step out of the cars, admiration mixed with fear. Later, as they were leaving, Kenneth handed her a small box with a silver necklace and some folded bills wrapped carefully in a cloth. "Just the beginning, my love. You're my priority now." Back at school, Adaora was exhausted. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling. Kioma's eyes, still open in the dark, met hers. "Do you sleep peacefully, Adaora?" She hesitated before answering. "Sometimes, but I don't know if it's sleep now or escape." The heat that morning felt more intense than usual. In the courtyard of Mount Zion Academy, Adaora walked with confidence. Her hair was flawless, her makeup subtle, and her uniform tailored like one of the elite girls. A group of students turned to watch her walk by. This time, not with laughter or mockery, but with curiosity, and maybe even a hint of envy. She was different now. Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing were waiting under the shade of a blooming flame tree, chewing imported gum and texting their partners on their phones. "Look who it is! Our runway queen!" Imelda shouted as Adaora approached. "Kenneth is spoiling this girl way too much," said Tasha. "I bet she already has more party clothes than we do." "And still says she's learning," added Blessing with a sarcastic grin. Adaora smiled, adjusting the strap of her bag. Inside, her new iPhone vibrated constantly. That morning, Kenneth had sent 3 voice messages saying he loved her, that he thought about her when he woke up, and that he would soon introduce her to important people. She no longer blushed at those words. The discomfort she once felt was now buried under a growing sense of importance. She was in the circle now. At lunch, she didn't sit with Kioma like she used to. Instead, she looked for a table in the back where the 3 girls sat surrounded by followers. Everyone laughed and chatted about new music, imagined vacations and older men. Adaora no longer ate in the basic cafeteria where she once had plain rice and beans. Now her meals were delivered in sealed packages, dried fruit, natural juices, nuts, luxuries that Kioma watched from a distance, eyes glossy but silent. Adaora's grades began to plummet without her even noticing at first. She had once been the top student in English literature, the only one in class who could analyze a poem in depth. Now she barely turned in assignments. Her notebooks were half empty, and her tests came back covered in red marks. Lacks substance. You used to be excellent. What happened? Her nights were now spent in long phone calls with Kenneth and in group chats with the girls, planning the next outing. "We're going to Nsuka this Saturday," said Tasha, as she adjusted her fake nails. "Private party. Kenneth's cousin owns the hotel. There'll be French wine and even a massage therapist." "For real?" Adaora lit up. "But what if the school checks in on us?" "Oh, Adaora, please," Imelda rolled her eyes. "The guard already got his cut this month. The whole school pretends not to see we're covered." Adaora didn't respond, but deep down, she knew that kind of protection was fragile, built on convenience. Still, she kept diving deeper by the day. Chioma made one last attempt to reach her. One afternoon, as Adaora was combing her hair with expensive cream from Enugu, Kioma spoke up. "Ada, can I talk to you?" "Go ahead, Kioma. I'm listening." "You've been pulling away, and it's not just from me. It's from yourself. I saw your lit test. That's not you." Adaora sighed and kept combing her hair. "Things change, Kioma." "They do. But losing what made you special, that's not growth. That's abandonment." Adaora dropped the brush and turned with a firm look. "You think you know everything, don't you? Just because you think you're pure. But let me tell you something. Purity doesn't put food on the table. Purity doesn't pay for an iPhone. Purity doesn't pull anyone out of poverty." Kioma said nothing. She walked away without another word. Over time, even the teachers began to notice. The disapproving stares grew more frequent. One of them, Ms. Ijoma, stopped her in the hallway. "Adaora, can I ask you something?" "Of course, ma'am. What's going on with you? You used to be an outstanding student. Now I can't even follow your essays. Are you okay?" Adaora smiled and deflected. "I'm fine. Just a little overwhelmed. I'll bounce back soon." But that never happened. The pressure kept building. The parties became more frequent. The spending increased, and Kenneth began demanding more of her time. One weekend, after yet another party, Adaora returned weak, her legs shaky. She had a fever, stomach pain, and missed 2 days of classes, yet no one from the inner circle offered any help. She slowly realized that their friendship was based on usefulness, on performance. If she slipped, she'd be left behind. Still, she clung to it. Because to her, being rejected by the girls was worse than being forgotten by the books, and it was through this pace, this quiet transformation, that Adaora lost not just her grades, but her very identity. She was no longer the driven scholarship student who read in secret at night, nor the girl who shared hair cream with Kioma. Now, she was just another one of Mount Zion's happening girls, with selfies on social media, expensive gifts, and an emptiness she could no longer ignore. Adaora sat at the back of the classroom, hands folded on the desk, eyes fixed on nothing. The teacher was saying something about the Industrial Revolution, but her mind was elsewhere. The world around her felt blurred, as if she were submerged in a bubble. It was the third consecutive week of morning nausea and pounding afternoon headaches. She could no longer blame the heat or the exhaustion from the parties. She knew something was wrong. Very wrong. That afternoon, as soon as the final bell rang, she slipped into the bathroom of the administrative building. From her bag, she pulled out a small white envelope she had received from an older student. Inside was a pregnancy test. Minutes later, alone in the stuffy bathroom, she stared at the result. Positive. Her stomach turned, not from nausea, but from panic. It felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet, the air grew thin, and her heart pounded like a tribal drum in her chest. Her fingers trembled so badly she could barely snap the cap back on the pen she had used to mark the test. No, this can't be. It always worked. She had taken the same pills the other girls used. They were passed around like candy by the seniors. One dose and problem gone, they'd say. Adaora had used them before, without issue. But this time, her body seemed to have made a different choice, one she didn't know how to undo. Without thinking twice, she rushed to the dorm and searched frantically for more pills in her bag, her locker, her nightstand. She swallowed 2 more tablets without water, the bitter taste still burning her throat. She waited, lay down, got up, went to the bathroom. Nothing. The next day, the result remained. A new test confirmed it, still pregnant. That's when she decided to tell someone. She sat down with Imelda, Blessing, and Tasha, now her confidants, the same girls who had once mocked her poorly done hair and now shared secrets with her. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice hoarse, barely a whisper. The 3 froze for a moment, exchanging glances. The silence was heavy. "Did you take the pills?" Blessing asked flatly. "I did. Several times. They didn't work this time." "Are you sure it's Kenneth's?" Imelda asked, raising an eyebrow. "Of course I'm sure. I was never with anyone else." "Oh, Adaora. Why does everything with you have to be complicated?" Tasha muttered. "Since you got here, it's like you attract drama. I just need help. I need to get rid of this, like you all have. I need you to take me to wherever you go." None of them answered right away. Imelda was the first to stand. "Look, we like you and all, but you're dragging us too far into this. We're friends, not an abortion clinic. If you can't handle your business, don't blame us. But you brought me into this. You taught me, encouraged me. You said it was normal. It is. For people who know how to handle it," Blessing snapped back. In the days that followed, Adaora was completely alone. The girls avoided her eyes, stopped inviting her out, didn't even respond to her messages. When she passed them in the hallway, they turned their faces or pretended to be busy. Meanwhile, her body was already showing signs. Her belly had started to protrude slightly, and her uniform no longer fit like it used to. She began wearing bigger sweaters, scarves tied around her waist. But the disguise wouldn't last much longer. That's when she made a desperate decision. She would find Kenneth. That Saturday night, Adaora climbed the school wall alone. The guards didn't even notice. She walked to the usual pickup point, took transport to Enugu, and got off on the street where Kenneth had always claimed to live. She rang the buzzer with sweaty hands. The gate opened, but instead of the charming, smiling man, a woman appeared, elegant, dressed in an embroidered tunic, her hair neatly styled, eyes sharp. "Yes?" she asked, looking Adaora up and down. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm looking for Kenneth. This is his address, right?" "Kenneth?" The woman crossed her arms. "You mean the driver? Dr. Driver?" "Yes. He's our driver. He just left a little while ago to run an errand. But wait." She looked at Adaora more closely. "You're another one, aren't you?" "Another one? Oh my God." The woman let out a bitter laugh. "You're the 3rd girl to show up here saying you're pregnant by him, or in love with him, or in trouble, or all of the above. He used this house as a cover, didn't he?" Adaora stepped back. The information hit her like a wall. "But he said this was his house, that you were traveling, that we were traveling, yes, but this has always been our home. I'm his wife, and he's just the driver. He has children, a life, and none of it includes you." Adaora collapsed to her knees on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. The woman's words echoed even after everything else went silent. "Go back to your mother, girl, before something worse happens." She staggered to her feet, walking down the sidewalk not knowing where to go. She didn't have enough money to return to her family's village. She didn't have the courage to face her mother. She had no one. She returned to school in the early hours, struggling to climb the wall, her body and guilt weighing her down. When she finally lay in bed, the room spun. The walls seemed to close in around her. The next morning, she knelt before Blessing and begged, "Please help me, for everything we've been through. Please." Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Blessing hesitated, then finally nodded. "There's a guy, a doctor, unofficial, but he can take care of it. Saturday night, we'll go." And so, even knowing the danger, Adaora clung to that last shred of hope. A hope as sharp as a blade, as dangerous as poison. But for her, it was all she had left. Night fell over Mount Zion Academy with an eerie silence. It was Saturday, but there were no laughs in the hallways, no clouds of perfume traded between girls getting ready for a party. In the dorm, Adaora sat in the corner of her bed, hands clasped in her lap, her face pale. The coat she wore was twice her size, hiding the curve of her belly that now pushed forward, barely concealed. Blessing slipped into the room quietly, a scarf tied over her hair. "You ready?" she asked softly, glancing around. Adaora nodded but said nothing. She picked up her small backpack, stuffed with a change of clothes and a crumpled bit of cash, and slung it over her shoulder. The two moved through the back of the dorm, avoiding eye contact. They passed the restroom wing, the back garden, and, like so many nights before, climbed the side wall of the school. This time the guard wasn't there. It was riskier, but they went anyway. Outside, they flagged down a motorcycle taxi that carried them through dim streets until they reached a dusty alley with a grey wooden door. Blessing knocked 3 times in a quick pattern. A middle-aged man with a dirty apron and sunken eyes opened it. "This the girl?" he asked, nodding toward Adaora. "Yeah, 4 months along," Blessing replied, eyes fixed on the ground. "That far in? Whatever I do, it's gonna hurt. A lot." Adaora said nothing. Fear burned in her throat, but she didn't back down. It was this or nothing. The inside was cramped and stifling, with the stench of stale alcohol and peeling walls. There was no modern equipment, just old rags, buckets, and a metal table covered with a stained sheet. "Take off the bottom half, lie down," the man said, washing his hands in a bucket with bar soap. Adaora looked at Blessing, eyes pleading. "You'll stay with me?" "I will, don't worry," she lied, trying to sound strong. The man began the procedure with long, thick instruments. No anesthesia, no comfort, just harsh instructions. "Keep still. Don't scream. Hold tight." The pain came like a blade, slicing from the inside out. Adaora gripped the sheet, eyes locked on the cracked ceiling. Tears streamed silently. Her mouth hung open, but no sound came out. Blessing turned her head. Her breath was shallow, hands sweating. She had seen this before, but never with someone so close. After nearly an hour, the man wiped his hands, tossed the instruments into a bucket of water and said, "Done, but she lost a lot of blood. She needs to rest before she leaves." Adaora was motionless, pale, her forehead soaked with sweat, lips nearly blue. "Come on, help her up," the man ordered. Blessing helped her into her skirt, both girls trembling. They walked slowly to the door. The motorcycle taxi waited outside. On the ride back, Adaora didn't say a word. Her eyes were empty, her arms hanging like they weighed 100 pounds each. They reached the school just before 3 a.m. They crossed the overgrown lot, skirted the courtyard, and were about to pass through the side gate of the dorm when Adaora staggered. "Wait, are you okay?" Blessing turned. Adaora didn't answer. Her knees buckled, and in the next moment, she collapsed to the ground. Blood streamed down her legs, soaking the dry grass beneath her. A faint groan escaped her lips. "Oh God!" Blessing cried out. "Adaora! Somebody! Help!" Her scream echoed across the courtyard. Lights flicked on in the dorms. Doors burst open, students rushed out, and within seconds a crowd gathered around Adaora, now unconscious, her face ghost white. "Call the principal! Call the infirmary!" someone shouted. The headmistress arrived moments later, still in her pajamas and headscarf. When she saw the scene, she didn't hesitate. "Get her to the hospital, now! Someone bring the car!" The next hours were a blur. At Nsukka Municipal Hospital, Adaora was rushed straight into surgery. She had lost too much blood. Her uterus was perforated. There was infection, hemorrhaging. Doctors worked fast, hooking up IVs, shouting orders, trying to keep her pulse steady. Meanwhile, Adaora's mother was notified by phone. She rushed from the village of Nkanu. When she arrived, her eyes scanned the hospital halls searching for her daughter. She spotted Adaora being wheeled away on a stretcher, tubes attached, blood staining the sheets. "My daughter! Adaora! Oh God! What did they do to you?" but it was too late. Minutes later, a doctor emerged, face grim, and shook his head. "We did everything we could. She lost too much blood. Her organs couldn't recover. I'm so sorry." The mother collapsed to her knees, wailing. The hospital halls filled with cries, with grief, with the sound of a life slipping away. Blessing, Imelda, and Tasha stood outside in silence. None could meet the mother's eyes. None spoke a word. One by one, they left the hospital like shadows fleeing the sunrise. Adaora, the sweet girl who had dreamed of changing her life through books, died trying to survive the world that had been sold to her as liberation. But in truth, it was nothing more than a prison dressed in luxury. And on that cold dawn, Mount Zion lost more than a student. It lost an entire lifetime of possibilities. The funeral was held 3 days later in the village of Nkanu, where Adaora had been born. Her parents' mud brick house was surrounded by neighbors, relatives, and curious onlookers. The casket, simple and draped with fresh flowers picked from the fields, sat in the center of the room. Around it, some mourned in silence, others sobbed openly, but everyone shared the same feeling, a heavy grief laced with quiet indignation. Adaora's mother hadn't spoken a single word since bringing her daughter's body home. She remained seated beside the closed casket, eyes locked on its surface, hands clutching a handkerchief soaked with tears. Her father, silent, received condolences with a nod, unable to speak. Few knew the truth. The rumor spreading was of a sudden illness, an infection. There was no mention of a back-alley abortion, no talk of secret school outings, or older men, or gifts, or parties. The school had also chosen not to get involved. It issued a generic statement to the school community and quietly filed the case away as a personal tragedy. At Mount Zion Academy, Adaora's room was emptied without ceremony. Her books were collected, her sheets washed, her bed offered to another student. As if she had never been there, but Kioma couldn't forget. Sitting on her bed, she stared at the now empty one beside her, eyes brimming with tears. Adaora had been her soul sister, her partner in survival, until the day she chose another path. Even through the pain and distance that had grown between them, Kioma knew Adaora needed help, and no one was there when it mattered most. She wrote a letter and tucked it inside one of Adaora's favorite books, a worn copy of Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. On the envelope, only one word: Adaora. A silent tribute. In the dorm of the Queens, the mood had shifted too. Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing no longer laughed like before. Their expensive clothes stayed packed away. Their perfumes no longer scented the air. A shadow hung over them, no matter how hard they tried to pretend otherwise. "She shouldn't have gone alone," Imelda murmured one night, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "We warned her," Blessing replied, trying to sound cold, but her voice trembled. "But we're the ones who led her there," Tasha said quietly, more to herself than to the others. "She knew the risks," Blessing insisted. "And so did we," Imelda snapped, turning onto her side. In the next week's moral education class, Ms. Ijoma introduced a difficult topic: choices and consequences. "Every decision you make now shapes who you become," she said, pacing the room. "Friends have power over us. They can lift us up or destroy us. What are you choosing to be to each other?" The classroom fell silent. Kioma kept her eyes down, fists clenched. Blessing stared blankly at the board. Tasha pretended to take notes. Imelda bit the end of her pen, her mind far away. After class, Kioma walked out with purpose. At the door of the girls' dorm, she paused, took a deep breath, and knocked twice. Blessing opened the door, surprised. "Kioma, I'm not here to fight, I just want to say something." Kioma inhaled deeply. "You think what happened to Adaora is over? That it'll fade with time? It won't. It'll stay in the eyes of those who saw her. In the guilt you carry, and in the silence you've chosen. We're trying to forget, Kioma," Tasha said from behind, "and that's the problem." Kioma stared at them. "Adaora just wanted to belong. She wanted to be accepted, and you gave her the worst of what you had and called it life. But it wasn't life, it was a trap." Blessing opened her mouth to argue, but the words didn't come. The truth, spoken so plainly, crushed her. Chioma turned and walked away, leaving behind a room full of memories, a silence thick with shame, and 3 girls who would never be the same. Back in the village, days later, Adaora's mother finally spoke. Sitting beneath the shade of a mango tree, surrounded by older women, she looked up at the sky and murmured, "I warned her." But she was young. She wanted more. She wanted the world the city promised. But no one told her the price. One of the women older took her hand and replied, "May her pain be a warning to others. May her end save other girls from the same fate." And so, Adaora became a memory, a lesson, an echo in the halls of the school, in the eyes of the girls who now thought twice before jumping the wall. But more than that, Adaora became a reminder that sometimes what looks like freedom is really the beginning of a long prison, one not everyone escapes alive. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Mount Zion Academy's auditorium, casting soft shadows over the rows of chairs. It was Monday, and the administration had summoned all students for a special reflection assembly. On stage stood the headmistress, flanked by 2 local pastors, Ms. Ijoma and the academic coordinator. The atmosphere was tense and expectant. Everyone knew the reason, even if no one dared to speak her name. Chioma sat in the second row, eyes fixed on the podium. She had brought her notebook, but she didn't plan to write a thing. The words she needed to remember were already etched into her memory. The silence was broken by the headmistress, her voice steady and measured. "We're here today not to point fingers, not to judge, but to reflect. One of us, one of you, lost her life, and it wasn't by accident. It was the sum of choices, small concessions, influences, silences, complicity. And now, what will we do with this pain?" One of the pastors stepped up to the microphone and continued, "Young people, the world out there is a marketplace of illusions. It offers gifts in exchange for your essence. It promises freedom, but charges interest you can't repay. This young woman we lost, and yes, we all lost her, only wanted to belong, to be seen, to be loved. But she was used and discarded." In the back row, Tasha lowered her gaze. Imelda bit her lip, holding back tears. Blessing trembled slightly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Chioma raised her hand. All eyes turned to her. The headmistress hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "You may speak, Chioma." She stood, walked up to the stage and faced her peers. "Adaora was my friend, my sister in this journey. We entered this school together, full of dreams. We promised that nothing would pull us off course. But her path was diverted. By smiles, by false promises, by that deep desire to feel like she mattered." She paused. The silence was absolute. And we all let it happen. The teachers who saw her grades drop and didn't ask why. The friends who taught her to live for appearances. The school leadership that pretended not to see the nightly outings, even me. I saw her slipping away and said nothing. We all failed her. A tear slid down Chioma's cheek, but her voice did not waver. And the cruelest part of it all is, she tried to come back. She tried to ask for help, but no one listened, not until it was too late. She took a deep breath and finished. "If this school truly wants to be a place of transformation, then let it first transform the way it embraces, protects, and teaches what truly matters. Adaora died alone, but her cry is still here. And as long as we pretend not to hear it, other girls will walk the same path." The headmistress, her eyes wet, rose again. "Thank you, Chioma. Your words were necessary." That night, the school's social media posted an open letter to the community. It didn't mention her name, but the message was clear. "Let no student of ours ever feel so invisible that she believes she must sell herself to be seen. May we never again have to bury a young woman with so much to offer." In the hallways, posters began to appear with phrases of awareness. "Say no to peer pressure. Your life is worth more than a gift. Real friendship protects." Internal campaigns were launched, dorm checks were tightened. The school salon was restructured to welcome all girls, regardless of social class. For the first time, the school responded with actions, not just words. Tasha, Imelda, and Blessing quietly stepped back from the spotlight. They now sat at the back of the classroom, away from curious stares. They avoided mirrors, avoided parties, avoided the reflection in their own conscience. Chioma, on the other hand, buried herself in her studies like never before. She returned to the library daily and started a reading club for new students. She called it the Adaora Project. One afternoon, while organizing books, a first-year student approached her. "You're Chioma, right? I just wanted to say thank you and for the club. I was feeling really lost here, but this group has helped me a lot." Chioma smiled, a sad smile, but a sincere one. That's why it exists, so no one else feels alone. Back in the village of Nkanu, Adaora's mother kept her daughter's room untouched. On the bed, the copy of Things Fall Apart, with an envelope inside, still held Chioma's letter. Sometimes she opened it and read. Sometimes she cried, but every time she said the same words when she closed it. "May my daughter's death save many others." And so, even without walking the halls anymore, Adaora remained present, in more attentive eyes, in kind advice, in hands extended when someone began to drift away. Because in the end, the greatest mistake wasn't Adaora wanting love and acceptance. The mistake was the world around her making it seem like the only way to be seen was to trade her soul. If you've listened to this story all the way through, remember this: it is better to go home and face your mother's disappointment than to chase acceptance down a path that might cost you your life. Let Adaora's story never be repeated. Let it wake us up and let it change us.